Hello, Cozy Gamers, and welcome back to the Cozy Gaming Club, where we talk about all the latest and greatest cozy games. And today we are playing one of the latest and greatest indeed. Little Known Galaxy is a farming and life sim set in space, and it really is one of the best games I've played in a long while. It really scratches that Stardew Valley itch for me. But you don't have to take my word for it, because I'm going to be taking you through my first 50 days in the game. If that sounds good to you, make sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more cozy gaming content. Little Known Galaxy begins with a brief introduction to the game's backstory. We're a new captain in training stationed on a rundown ship, which is orbiting a desolate grey planet, and failing to achieve their mission. It doesn't sound like we're off to a great start, but we do get to design our character. I had to play around with the different options available, including bright hair colours, giant bows, and elf ears, which you know I had to use. I do wish there were a few more options for the style of clothes, but this will do for now. After that, we arrive on our ship where our computer proceeds to show us around the bridge. There's not a lot we can do here, so we swiftly take one of the lifts down to the plaza. This is what I've found to be the main hub, where there's a general store, a gym, and a canteen. Most people tend to hang out around here during the day if they're not at work. Our next stop was to head to the cargo hold, where the machine shop for your upgrades is located, and the shuffle bay where our shuttlecraft is docked. And finally, we got to go to our deck. Naturally, we get a panning shot of a massive mess that we will have to sort out, but I'm already in love with the space theme and so excited to get started. Which we get to do immediately. CPU leaves us to our own devices, and I instantly spot the giant chest in my room. Inside it has some recycled parts and a lamp, so I grab those and place the lamp next to my bed. I also have an email that gives me an overview of my job to unlock the secrets of a mysterious relic, colour me intrigued, and an email of Piper welcoming me to the ship. After leaving my room, CPU pops up again to give me a restoration ray for cleaning up damaged areas. How I wish this was real. I quickly get to work cleaning up the area outside the front of my room, as I imagine I will need this space later. Leaving my deck brings me back to the bridge, where I meet Kada, my second in command. She suggests that I meet the rest of the crew, of course, so off I go on my quest to meet everyone. I start off by heading to Science and Medical, which is where I met Fiji and her adorable fluffy pet Poofy. They reminded me so much of the Puffles from Club Penguin, and I hoped I would be able to get my own later in the game. I also met Mechanical Android number 10, aka Max, Francis, and Doc 12, and had a quick snoop around the Science Centre and Medical Centre. The third level was made up of all the residences for my crewmates, but I was able to meet Shinji. Floor 4 was a buzz with people. I was able to meet my pilot, who also conveniently was called Pilot. I also met Kendall, who is scared of ghosts, before making my way to the general store. There I met Robert, the owner, who told me about all the different things he stocked, and introduced me to Binbot, a handy little robot who would take any items that I wanted to sell to Robert every evening. After the cutscene ended, I met a giant cute rabbit robot called I-1900, and Lynn, the resident botanist. The general store also has a cool furniture bot store called 3D Bot, which has some funky decorations for your house. Around the back I found Jimmy, then I popped next door, which turned out to be a gym. There I met Lauren, and when I left I also got to meet Chip, who runs the canteen. On a recreation level I met Max again, where they seemed to be LARPing with Stuart, and I explored the cargo bay and engine room too, but didn't meet anyone else. Eventually, I ended up just standing outside their bedrooms waiting for them to head to bed. I'm normal, I promise. Anyway, that's how I met Steven, and then I headed to bed myself. The next morning, Lynn stopped by my house to ask for my help to grow enough crops to feed the crew. She taught me how to use my workbench and gave me some potato seeds to get started, as well as a watering pack. I took a moment to take a look at what I could craft on my workbench, but I didn't have any of the resources required, so I cracked on with my garden. I moved my planters in front of my house and planted and watered all of my seeds. After a quick break outdoors to place my other solar panel, it was time to try and find my remaining crewmates. I found Piper on level 2 watching the galaxy and Grey Planet through the big observation window. And although I didn't discover anyone new on level 4, I did discover the digital bulletin board, which is where people can put up quests. The first one looked quite simple, so I grabbed that before continuing my search. I finally met Sprout and I love them so much. They're the cutest little plant person. And there was just one person left, so I headed to Edward's house and finished my quest. When I returned to Kada to let her know that I'd finished everything, she told me that my shuttle was ready to head down to the Grey Planet. It was tempting to go straight away, but it was already 7 PM, so I thought it was better to wait until the following day. After a small incident with my shuttlecraft the next morning, it was finally time to fly to the Grey Planet and see what all this fuss was about. Let's just say I can definitely see where it gets its name from. It didn't take long before I stumbled across the mysterious relic, a giant stone arch with hearts cut out of it. I continued exploring, and that's when I came across a huge collection of rocks and a strange hole in the wall. Video game logic told me that I needed to get in there, so I got to work blasting my way through. Inside the cave, I found a room with strange cave markings and a cute sleeping alien. They ran away when I tried to talk to them, but eventually CPU managed to discern that they were hungry. But what do aliens eat? I needed to find Kada and report back to her about my discovery, but first I told my new best friend Sprout everything. I couldn't find her anywhere though, and eventually resorted to standing inside her house waiting for her to come home. Definitely not creepy. After I explained about Soot, she revealed that Chip had recommended a few different food options for us to experiment with. I'd need to grow them first though. She also told me about new explorable areas where I'd be able to find an abundance of resources. Of course, that's the very first thing I did the next day on day 4. This part of the game is very similar to the mines in Stardew Valley, where you break rocks and dig to find ladders, or in this case, coordinates to the next area. I will say that I do find this a lot less forgiving than Stardew's mines, and sometimes you need to clear almost the entire level to find the next location. The enemies are cool though, and I love the pet rocks that are everywhere on this planet. Their big googly eyes are so fun. Much like the mines, you only get checkpoints when you reach every 5th area, but I found this difficult to do without a number of energy tonics to help. It was definitely abundant in resources though, just like Kada said. On day 5, I went straight to the general store to buy some soybean seeds for my main quest. While exploring the planet yesterday, my inventory filled up quite quickly, so I also grabbed a backpack upgrade too. Then it was time to head back to the Grey Planet, but not before I bumped into Sprout, who was admiring my shuttle. They told me that they belong to the Galaxy's Little Explorer Club, an exclusive club for young scientists and explorers. Their dad wouldn't let them go down to the planet, so they asked me to do some exploring for them so that they could impress their friends. Well, I was planning to do that anyway, so of course I agreed. After mining for a few hours, I headed home and got to work on my garden. I crafted some new planters, planted all my crops, and watered them. I was just about to head to bed when I remembered Piper's quest to give someone a gift. And fortunately, I'd found a toy robot on the Grey Planet while exploring, and I knew exactly who to give it to. I caught Sprout on their way to bed and gave it to them to their delight. The next morning, all my potatoes had grown. I picked them up and made my way to find Lynn, who was in her house. She was so pleased to see my potatoes and paid me 150 credits for my hard work. Next up was Piper, who was having tea in a house with I-1900, who looked so cute in their polka dot penny. What a fun little addition to the game. Back at the general store, I bought the corn I needed for my main quest, some carrots, and the spices I needed to give to Fiji for their bulletin board quest. Fortunately, I found Fiji right outside and got 70 credits for my effort, and then I headed home to plant and water my new crops. My next stop was the medical center to buy more energy tonics for exploring, which is what I spent the rest of my day doing. The next day was also spent exploring, and thanks to my energy tonics, I was able to make it all the way to Area 5. Day 8 went the same way as well, except this time I got chased by a ton of the stone monsters, who hunted me down and ended my day before I could make it to Area 10. The good news is that you don't lose any of your resources, but you do have a little less energy than usual the next day. Which is a good thing, because that meant that on day 9 I could head straight to Kada's house to complete her resource gathering quest. She said they were prime samples and gave me 200 credits to cover the cost of the resources. As I had low energy, I decided to spend my entire morning catching up with my crew. I also grabbed the food rations that I needed for Suit, and with the soybeans and corn growing, I knew that I'd be able to feed them soon. I finished my day with some light mining with my remaining energy. On day 10, I woke up to discover my soybeans and carrots had already grown. I got a sparkling one that I dropped in the bin bot, and the rest went into my storage to save for Suit. I had also finally collected enough resources to craft a furnace, but I didn't have enough electricity to power it. So I had to build another solar panel too and rush outside to place it on the outer hull. With my new furnace now powered up, I started to smelt all the aluminium I had collected so far. At the plaza, I found another simple quest to give Jimmy some stones, and I made sure to top up on my energy tonics so that I could reach the next exploration milestone. Jimmy was working on the shuttle dock, so I was able to complete his quest on my way to the Grey Planet for another day of exploring. But I had a very bad day, and didn't make it far at all by 5 PM, so I decided to save my energy tonic and try again tomorrow. The next morning, I rushed to the general store, but I was actually too early and it hadn't opened yet. So I hovered around outside with Jimmy until 9 AM hit and I could go inside. I grabbed some potato seeds before heading home to plant them and then setting out for another day of exploration. Once again, I got hounded by a group of stone golems, but my perseverance paid off. The sun had long since set, but I finally made it to Area 10 at 9 PM. The following day, I awoke to fully grown corn, and with that, everything I needed to complete my quest and feed Suit. Naturally, that was the first thing I did after watering all my crops, of course. Suit was so happy with the food and proceeded to stuff his face. As a thank you gift, he gifted me a piece of the relic, which looked like a giant purple heart. I was getting ready to leave when I saw how sad Suit was all alone in his dark cave, and so decided to invite him to join us on Shippy McShipface. He was so excited and couldn't wait to head back with us, so teleported there himself. I also couldn't wait to get back to the ship and see him, but first I needed to check out the mysterious relic. When I inserted the relic piece Suit had given me, the mysterious relic showed me a flight path and a coordinate. It turns out that to find the other relic pieces, I'd need to visit new planets beyond the grey one. I can't tell you how excited I was to discover this. It's such a fun idea, and I can't believe it hasn't been done in cozy games before. I was already enjoying Little Known Galaxy, but this made it even better. First though, I had to hold a senior officers meeting to discuss what we should do. Stuart was a little skeptical about heading to a new planet, but I basically insisted that we needed to go. To do so though, I'd need to help Stuart craft some dark matter fuel that would be needed to travel through space. He gave me a brief lesson on how to make it, which involved crafting a fuel refiner, and then I headed to bed. That night I got a cutscene which showed Suit moving into his new home, the rundown dollhouse in the park that had been rebuilt and redecorated for him to move into. It was such a sweet little cutscene. On day 13, I crafted my fuel refiner and got to work making the extra fuel we'd need to travel to the next planet. But I wanted to make sure that I'd completed my best friend Sprout's quest before we left. I wasn't going to let my little buddy down. I made my way back to the Grey Planet for what I hoped would be my last day of exploration, but sadly I didn't make it. I ran out of energy on Area 14 out of 15 and had to head back to the ship unsuccessful. The following day, I woke up and watered my plants. I also collected my freshly grown soybeans, throwing the high quality ones into BinBot. I didn't see any point in rushing to the Grey Planet this morning as I'd used up all of my energy tonics the previous day. So instead, I had a little wander around chatting to all my crewmates. While wandering, I found a strange microbe research machine in the medical center that I'd not noticed before. It looked like I'd need to collect 10 of each microbe, whatever they are, to get a prize. I also visited Suit at his new house, and he kindly gave me some dark matter fuel, which meant one less until we could leave. It turns out the general store is closed on Saturdays, so I wasn't able to visit there and buy some more seeds. So instead, I went to the medical center and bought 5 energy tonics to try to tackle the rest of the exploration. Francis is making so much money off me, but I don't have another way to effectively replenish my energy. Yet. Despite it already being past midday, I decided to see if I could make it to Area 15. And although it was another late evening, I made it all the way and completed Sprout's quest. And got a chest of lunar decorations and scrap metal to make it worth my while. It was gone 11 PM and there was no more left to explore, so I made my way back to the ship to go to bed. Day 15 ended up being my last day on the Grey Planet, as I had all of the fuel I needed now thanks to Soot and my dark matter refinery. Before leaving though, I paid a visit to the general store to grab some new carrot seeds. While there, I also noticed that 3D-Bot had stocked the lunar furniture I discovered the day before. The lunar rug was beautiful, but I didn't have enough money for it. So I completed Chip's bulletin quest by fetching him a potato, and then I finally had enough to buy it. After I had planted all my carrots and placed my new rug in my house, I decided to try to find Sprout and tell him the good news. They couldn't believe that I'd reached Area 15 and were super excited to share the report and map with the other members of their club. Finally, it was time to head down to the engine room and add our dark matter fuel to the ship. Then it was back to the bridge to sit in my captain's chair for the first time this game and set our flight path for a brand new planet. The little animation was great, and then we were on our way. It turns out that it takes a few days to travel between different planets, so I'd be stuck on the ship for a while. I was a little worried about this at first, I'm not gonna lie, but I figured it would be a great opportunity to continue clearing up my deck, which was also a great way to collect new resources. Thankfully, I needn't have worried because Francis showed up the next morning with a new task for me. Apparently, there were a ton of microbes living aboard our ship, some of which could cause health problems or damage the ship. Francis wanted to monitor them and would like my help to catch them. She gave me a microbe detector to help me find them, and in return I'd get a small monetary reward for each one I caught. So I spent the entire day hunting for microbes. Some of them were quite easy to catch, whereas others were incredibly difficult. And it turns out you can also catch high quality or super variations which are worth more money. By lunchtime, I'd caught almost 10, so I dropped them in Binbot and spent the rest of day 16 cleaning up my deck. Which is exactly how I spent day 17 as well. Although I did visit the machine shop on day 17 too, after receiving an email from Edward reminding me that I could upgrade my tools there. Unfortunately, I didn't have any of the resources required to upgrade them, and this really confused me. Why would they be prompting me to upgrade my tools if they hadn't given me the resources to do so? Turns out I'm just dumb. Make sure to check out my tips and tricks video, which I've linked above, so that you don't make the same stupid mistake I did, or keep watching and I'll be clearing it up later. On day 18, CPU woke me up with an excited message to let me know that we'd arrived at the new planet, and my shuttlecraft was all set to take me down when I was ready. I was so excited to go and check out the new planet, but first I had to care for my plants. Arriving at the new planet was almost a magical experience. We dropped down and it looked so cool. It turned out to be called Blue Reef Planet, and was filled with half-sunken houses, figures in fancy armor, and furniture made out of pearls. The first person I came across seemed to be distressed and didn't want to talk to me. But as I continued through the planet, I came across a group of citizens, 2 of whom were a king and a princess. They explained to me that everyone had been struck down by land sickness, and they asked me if I'd be able to find a cure to help them. This unlocked a new exploration area, and I immediately wanted to go and meet the new enemies. They were so cool, a little jellyfish-esque creature that dealt electric shocks, and a clam that spat pills at you. Somehow, I almost made it all the way to level 5, but didn't quite do it. I did find copper though, which I needed for some of my equipment recipes. Once I was back on the ship, I set out to find Francis to ask her more about the sickness that was troubling the citizens of the Blue Reef planet. I didn't find her, but I did find Sprout, Pilot, and Lynn chatting outside in the medical center. The next morning, all of my carrots had grown. I collected them all and sold the sparkling ones again before heading to the general store to buy some more seeds. But it turns out that being on a new planet opens up new plants for you to grow. I now had access to ginger, lettuce, watermelon, and cucumber. I bought a couple of each before making my way to the medical center to chat to Frances. She explained that we'd need vitamins and ginger in order to help the citizens of the Blue Reef planet, and gave me the schematics for a medicine machine before setting me to work to make everything that we'd need. First up was heading back to the general store to grab more ginger seeds, as the 2 I had bought were not enough for the quest. I also needed to craft 2 more planters to make sure I could grow enough ginger. Once again, this put me over the power limit, so I also needed to craft a new solar panel and popped out to the outer hull to place that. While I was on a crafting spree, I also made a new chest for storing all my excess food and seeds. Sadly, I didn't have enough copper to build the medicine machine though, so that part of the quest would need to wait until later. It was still quite early, but I decided to turn in and end my day. On day 20, I awoke to an email from Edward, who had a brand new schematic for me, which let me break down microbes into fertilizer for my crops. Once again, I didn't have the right resources to craft it though. Heading out of my deck, I bumped into Kada, who had a new resource quest for me, to collect resources from the Blue Reef planet. Which was my plan for the day anyway. I was so excited to explore more of this lush blue planet and see what else I could discover here. I also really needed copper ore for my main quest. While exploring, I found a beautiful music box and made a lot of creatures angry, but I did make it all the way to Area 5, which was exciting. I figured that the music box was probably intended to be a gift for someone, and part of me just knew that this would be the perfect gift for Fiji, so I set out to find her. When I reached the plaza though, I bumped into a cutscene with Shinji and Lauren instead, where they were flying around on spaceboards. They let me know that Edward could probably make one if I wanted, and that they'd help me get around the ship quicker. With the cutscene completed, I found Fiji at the canteen, who was beyond happy with the music box. It turned out to be her favourite gift, which makes me wonder what everyone else's is. It was also Friday night, so the canteen was poppin'. I slowly made my way around chatting to everyone, and also found a bulletin board quest for Doc 12, who wanted a food ration. I thought it would be really easy to complete, so I quickly grabbed one from Chip for 100 credits, and turned it into Doc 12 for 120 before heading to bed. After taking care of my farm the following morning, I visited the plaza and found a request from Kada to zap 5 giant blue Cosmo Creeps. Great name, by the way. I was planning to go exploring anyway, and luckily there was one right there as I landed my ship, so I was able to immediately tick one off my list. Sadly, I didn't make it far before I ran out of energy, so I made my way home, which is when I discovered that I had enough resources to build my medicine machine. I placed some minerals in it to start crafting before calling it a day. The following day, I made it all the way to level 10 in the exploration, and while there, I discovered the last 2 creeps I needed to complete Kada's quest as well. While looking for her, I stumbled across Lynn, who had a new quest for me. She wanted me to grow some of the new fresh produce that's unique to Blue Reef Planet. I accepted the quest, but I knew it would take me a little while to complete, as I was still growing all the ginger for the main quest. Then I found Kada and received a tasty 150 credits for finishing her bulletin quest. At this point, I had so much money and kept wishing that I could find the other resources that I needed to build my other equipment and upgrade my tools. It is so painful to watch this back and see how much time and resources I wasted, but I still hadn't figured out my mistake at this point. On day 23, I got a bulletin quest from Doc 12 to catch 3 wild microbes, and I thought it'd be a nice change from exploring. I searched the entire ship for them and also grabbed some more energy and health tonics from the medical center. When I left my house on day 24, I got sidetracked by Poofy running at me, with Fiji chasing behind them. Fiji said that they're a type of creature called a xeno that can be hatched from eggs and are incredibly rare. Then she asked me if I'd like to raise one. I didn't think this game could get any better, but this made my day, and it had only just started. I said, absolutely, and Fiji gave me the schematics for a xenopod and feed depository, as well as an egg for a fluffy puff puff xeno, which is the same kind as Poofy. But when I went to my workbench, I once again needed materials that I didn't have yet, like glass and stone composite. This is the same issue that has been cropping up a lot, but I still didn't figure it out. After a long day of exploration, I made it to Area 15 on the Blue Reef planet, where I found a chest containing ocean decoration data and a life spark. A life spark is a great mythical item that increases your max energy, which I really needed. I ate it immediately and it gave my energy a really nice boost. Even though I'd reached level 15, I still needed to continue exploring as I was missing the minerals I needed to craft the medicine for the Blue Reef planet citizens. I was surprised by how hard this was to come by, to be honest, and I feel like I spent a lot of my days just searching for this elusive resource. The only way I found to get it was by killing enemies and digging up the soft pink sand. But if I do find an alternative, I will drop it in the comments, or if you do, please drop it as well to help other players. But this was good, as I also gathered all the supplies I needed for Kada's research, and she rewarded me with a new advanced furnace that can batch smelt items. This was a game changer and really sped up my smelting process. I needed one more aluminium before I could craft it though, so I put that on and went to bed. When I woke on day 26, I realised that I still hadn't completed Doc 12's bulletin board request. So I quickly got to work scanning for microbes and chatting to all my crewmates along the way. This took my entire day and I had quite a few close shaves with rarer microbes, but couldn't catch them yet. The wild microbes eluded me though until right at the end of the day. I rushed to find Doc 12 before they headed to bed and I found them having night classes at the school on recreation. There are so many cool little things to discover about this game. Anyway, they gave me 54 credits for my hard work. After spending the entire day catching microbes yesterday, I decided to start day 27 by heading to the Science Center and checking out that microbe research machine I discovered back on day 14. Do you remember? Now that I'd been catching microbes and donating them to the Science Center, I was actually getting close to the catch goal on a few of the more common ones. There were still so many that I hadn't discovered though. It also happened to be Shinji's birthday today, so I dropped by his and Doc 12's night classes again to drop off a birthday present for him. Some polished rocks I'd found exploring. He really liked them, but they weren't his favourite. Back to the drawing board on that one. The next day, while I headed out to go exploring, I stumbled across Robi, a sales bot extraordinaire who travels the galaxies looking for spaceships to sell their goods. They asked if they'd be able to sell items on my shuttle deck every Saturday. I had a little nosy at their wares and they had a lot of great stuff, including an engagement ring and another Xeno egg. But there was nothing I really needed, so I left them to it and went exploring again. When I got back to the ship, I decided it was time to try and befriend my crewmates some more, so I ran around gifting everyone the ocean flowers that I'd found while exploring. No one really liked them, but at least they hopefully boosted my friendship points a little. That night when I went to bed, it turned out that day 28 was the end of the first quarter, which meant it was time for my first captain review. Oh no. Every quarter you get judged on a range of metrics like mission objective, crew morale, ship improvements, and more. And the results determine if you can level up your captain level. I was crushing it at the mission objective ranking, but everything else was quite low and I didn't get amazing scores. But it gave me something to work towards with my second quarter report. Reaching novice level came with an impressive 500 credits bonus and the ability to build a wardrobe. I also got an email of Piper reminding me that Friendship Day was coming up. When I left my house, I saw that all of my ginger had finally grown, which meant I was only missing the medicine needed to heal the people of Blue Reef. And I could finally plant all the seeds for Lynn's quest. Once that was done, it was back to Blue Reef Planet for more exploring on my hunt for minerals, which is also how I spent day 30. I was back on the microbe hype on day 31 just to have a little break from exploring really, although I did accept a quest from Kada to zap some urchin creeps. Then I finished my day by doing a little rearranging of my deck and crafting my advanced furnace. This was also the moment when I finally realized that I could put sand and other resources into my furnace. I honestly cannot believe that it took me a whole 31 days before realizing this. And it makes me so sad to think about all the surplus resources I sold because I thought they were useless. But at least I finally figured this out, and now you know too for your own playthrough. The following day, I finally had the resources I needed to craft the meteorite extractor, so that I could start cracking all those meteorites I'd been hoarding. Look how many there are! And now that I can make glass, I set my sights on the Xenopod. I was going to get a cute little Xeno before the end of this playthrough. I was determined. My cabbages and cucumbers had fully grown on day 33, which meant I only needed my watermelon to grow and then I'd have everything I needed for Lynn's mission. Except I accidentally put one of my cabbages in BinBot. This is when I discovered that you can recover any items you put in BinBot, including ones where you have already put another item in afterwards. This is such a great mechanic, and I'm really grateful to the devs for adding it in. A day later, on day 34, I finally reached acquaintance level with both Cada and Pilot. I can't believe how long this took, and only to reach acquaintance level. I was gonna be in this for the long haul if I wanted to actually marry someone in this game, which is possible. Also, the fact they both leveled at the same time suggests to me that the bulletin board doesn't give you any friendship points, as I don't remember doing any bulletins for Pilot, whereas I've done quite a few for Cada. On day 35, my watermelons finally grew and my cucumbers sprouted again, which meant that I could complete Lynn's quest. I hope the crew wasn't actually starving, considering how long it took me to complete that one. After spending the last few days grinding away at exploration, I also got the last piece of medicine I needed to complete King Tide's quest and cure the land sickness. I was so happy and rushed to complete both quests straight away. I made my way to Lynn first since she was on the ship and found her hanging out in her garden. She was so impressed with the fresh vegetables that I got her and gave me a recipe for a garden bot that can water your crops for you. This sounded so cool, although I did think the fact that it only watered 4 spots was a little underwhelming. But that didn't matter because I was going to visit the king and heal the land sickness. I grabbed my shuttle back down to Blue Reef Planet and they were so grateful for the cure. They gave me the missing relic piece and his daughter, Sienna V, maybe, asked if she could join us on our adventures. She said that she wanted to help to look after the precious relic piece and also see the relic in person. But if she was going to come with us, we'd need to build her a fancy place to stay. What did we expect? She could just stay in a dollhouse like Suit? When I spoke to Edward about adding some fancy quarters onto the ship for Sienna V, it turns out that it had a hefty price tag. 1,000 credits and 10 pieces of copper. So I guess we're sticking around here a little longer if we want the princess to come with us. On day 36, Edward sent me a recipe for a fibre spinner, which makes different kinds of cloths. I hoped this would mean that we'd be able to make different clothes as well, but unfortunately you need silver to craft this one, and I hadn't come across any of that yet. On the other hand, I was so close to having the resources I needed to build the Xenopod, so I spent the rest of my day clearing up my deck to collect scrap metal, and finally built it. I decided I wanted it right next to my house, so I placed it down while I rearranged everything, but it turns out that this is the only object I've encountered so far that you can't move after you've placed it. I'm not gonna lie, this was a little annoying for me, as I obviously wouldn't have placed it there if I knew I couldn't move it, but I'd been able to pick up and move everything else, so I wasn't to know that would be an issue. Oh well, we're stuck with it now. I placed my egg in the incubator and decided to spend the rest of my day chatting to my crewmates and catching microbes. Honestly, I'm starting to get a little bit attached to Lynn, and I do think she's the one I want to eventually marry in the game, but I must admit that I also quite like Steven. This is going to be a tough choice. My next few days consisted of exploring and gathering the resources needed to build Sienna V's fancy quarters. At this point, I was really excited to finish this part of the quest and head back to the relic to see what happened next. I didn't know for certain, but I hoped there'd be another new planet to discover after this one. And honestly, I was starting to get a little worried that I wouldn't make it before the 50-day time limit I'd set myself for this video. On day 41, I finally had everything I needed to build the fancy quarters, and Edward let me know that it would take a couple of days to complete. So it was time for more exploring and microbe hunting. Day 42 brought with it the Friendship Festival. I was not looking forward to this festival. It was supposed to represent all the friends you'd made, but I was only acquaintance to 2 people, so I did not think it would be a satisfying experience for me. However, when I turned up, it looked so cute. There were flowers everywhere and so many fun decorations that you could buy. I made my way around chatting to everyone and bought a selection of cards for Edward to give to my crewmates. Some cards were worth more friendship points than others, and I didn't have much money on me. So I bought 1 monkey card, 2 robot cards, and 3 frog cards to give away. I decided to give my monkey card to Kada, and I gave my robot cards to CPU and Lynn. Then Sprout, Suit, and Fiji got my frog cards. What can I say? I love the little guys. Although I did try unsuccessfully to give one to myself, just to see what happened. When we unpacked our boxes, everyone got loads of cards, apart from me. I only got 2 frog cards and a ton of pity off Piper, who said, "Maybe you'll do better next year." My Xeno egg hatched on day 43. My little fluff ball looked so cute, and I decided to name them Peanut, which I thought was a very fitting name given the colour of them. I can't believe how small they were, but they were so cute. I did feel bad leaving them alone all day in their Xenopod though. I guess I'll just have to get some more. Today was finally going to be the day that I upgraded my first tool. Except I didn't have the money I needed to do so, so I spent it hunting for microbes instead to get some extra cash. On day 44, I woke up to an email from Edward letting me know that the fancy quarters had been built. I also finally remembered to visit Fiji and turn in my quest for hatching my Xeno, which netted me 500 credits. Perfect for finally upgrading my first tool. Then it was time to head down to the Blue Reef planet and tell Sienna V the good news. She joined our crew, and I knew this meant that it was time to leave this beautiful blue planet. I was sad to go, but excited to see what would come next. Day 45 was finally the day I upgraded my first tool. I figured I'd start with the laser blaster, as I wouldn't be needing that in space. Then it was time to bid farewell to the abundant Blue Reef planet and head back to the Grey planet. This would take 3 days, which passed quickly as there wasn't a ton to do. I spent most of my days catching microbes and chatting to my crewmates. I also discovered my first in-game secret. A big thank you to my friend Missy for giving me a hint for this. They're making an achievement guide for this game, so if you want to check that out, I will link it in the description. A lot of the characters in the game reference ghosts, especially Kendall, who is terrified of them. I thought this was just a bit of fun from the devs, but it turns out there is a secret room. Ooh, where a ghost resides. Ooh! I won't spoil this too much and leave it to you to discover yourself, but if you want a hint, then look for some strange markings. Unsurprisingly, I also got my first rewards from the Science Center on account of all the microbes I was turning in. Every 10 out of 10 netted me 100 credits and unlocked a new level out of 25. Other than that, my days were quite uneventful. I built a feed depository for my Xenopod and completed a quest for Shinji, who wanted 2 soya milks. On day 48, I awoke to 2 emails. One from Sprout to let me know that the research had revealed new coordinates for exploration on the Grey Planet, unlocking new areas that were way more challenging than the ones I'd explored before. The other email was from Edward letting me know that my laser blaster was ready just in time. There was a lot to do today, but of course the first thing that I did was head down to the Grey Planet and use the relic piece. As I am sure we all expected, once I inserted the relic piece, it revealed a brand new planet coordinate for us to travel to. I hope that as there's 5 relic pieces, there'll be 5 planets to discover, but we'll have to wait and see. I wanted to leave immediately to find this new planet, but as I was already here, I decided to check out the new exploration levels on the Grey Planet. Sprout was not joking about the difficulty level. There were new enemies, new rocks that were harder to break, and I ended up burning through my energy so quickly. Once I went back to the ship, I headed to the bridge to plot a course to the new planet, which would also take 3 days to get to. Sadly, that does mean I didn't make it to Planet 3 in time for day 50, so that's a real shame. But it does give you something to look forward to in your playthrough. No, I'm joking, I'm not gonna stop there. Let's see this third planet. On day 51, CPU woke me up to let me know that we'd arrived at planet number 3. Robert sent me an email to let me know that there were new crops in the store, but I was too excited for any of that. I wanted to see this new planet. It was straight to the shuttle bay for me, and after a short trip, I found myself on desert dunes. Clearly, there was some sort of life here, as there were dig spots everywhere, and I soon came across an adorable hermit crab. Their name was Hermie, and they were so glad that someone had finally responded to their distress beacon. Except we hadn't. But we agreed to help them anyway. They explained that their ship had been caught in a sandstorm while they'd been excavating on the planet looking for unique artifacts and oddities for their museum. My ears immediately perked up. I love a good museum. Anyway, their ship had been damaged and they'd need my help to fix it. All they needed was 12 silver and 6 burlap fabric. And in return, I'd get free admission to their museum when it was up and running. I tried to ask about the relic, but they looked super shifty, so we'd have to talk to them about that later when the ship was fixed and they owed us a favor. Since I was there, I checked out the new exploration area as well, and it was much the same as before, just with new enemies to face. The giant Cyclops scorpion was definitely an interesting one, especially with all the tall grass covering the area. I spent my final few hours at day 51 chatting to my entire crew at the canteen. And that nicely brings us to the end of my 51-day playthrough. In total, I played around 17 hours to reach day 50, and the devs have said it'll take 40 to 60 hours to complete the game, so it's chonky. I have literally just reached the third planet, and judging from the relic, there's at least 2 more planets to go. So there's a lot more content to discover here. It does get a little repetitive though with the constant exploration and microbe catching, but I wouldn't say any more so than Stardew Valley and its ilk. Overall, this is probably one of the best Stardew Valley-likes I've ever played, and I'm so excited to play more and discover more of the story. I hope this video gave you a great overview of what you could expect from Little Known Galaxy, and if you do try it out, please let me know what you thought in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more cozy gaming content. I hope to see you next video. Bye!